Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Peace be upon us. We're in this place, and it's good to know we're not alone. Certainly want to take this opportunity to wish all of the mothers and future mothers who are here today a very happy Mother Day in advance, and hoping that you are given the kind of praise that is due to someone who in our lives are second to God. And if you would indulge us for a moment. I'm happy to see a few new friends and some old friends here today, but I'm hoping you will indulge us. We have some business to handle relative to one of our sisters' recent loss of her father since the last time we was here together. And of course, she learned something that no spiritual scripture can teach her. A lesson that we all must get about how fragile and how very short a human lifetime is, and how much we need one another, not just physically, but in every other way, shape, and so if you will permit me to take a few minutes, and we must move quickly because I don't want to impose upon our guests patience and tolerance too much. But I wanted to give those in the Sangha who haven't had a chance to offer Samaya your condolences on the loss of her beloved father, who was in Jamaica, to please take advantage of this opportunity to do so. Please be brief, and you don't need to say anything to her, you just need to hug her. That's saying enough.
Let's go around this one.
It's very clear our love is here to stay. Not for real, but ever and a day. The radio, telephone, the movies that we know, maybe just be passing, and in time may go. Here to stay. Together going a long, long way. In time, the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, there will remain a place to stay. Look here. It's very clear. Our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long way. In time, the Rockies will crumble. Gibraltar may tumble. They're only made of clay, but our love is here. Our love is here. Our love is here. To So I say unto you, that when you go to work, while you're driving your car, let the presence of the Lord rest in you. Oh yes, you can take His presence that you are now receiving. Yes, you're now receiving the presence of the Lord. You can take it in the grocery store. You can take it on your job. You can take it to school. The presence of the Lord never has to cease. As long as He has an invitation, as long as you hunger and thirst after Him, He'll come now to you. You need to say it this morning. Let your presence gently rest upon my heart. Lord, let your presence gently rest upon my heart. I need you. Let your presence gently rest upon my heart, my heart. Lord, let your presence gently rest upon my heart. I need you, Jesus. Let your presence Oh, I need your presence right now to come and rest upon my heart. Yes, Lord. I need your presence to come and rest upon my heart. I can't make it without your presence. I need it to come and rest upon my heart, my heart. I need your presence. Come and rest upon my heart. Like the dew in the morning, gently rest upon my heart. Yes, Lord. Like the dew in the morning, gently rest upon my heart. Yes, Lord. Like the dew in the morning, gently rest upon my heart, my heart. Like the dew in the morning, gently rest upon my heart. I need you, Lord, to come and rest, Jesus. Rest, Jesus. Rest, Lord Jesus. Like the dew in the morning, Lord. Rest, Jesus. Rest, Jesus. Like the dew that sits on the ground. Come and sit in my heart, Lord, and rest, Jesus. Rest, Jesus. Rest, Jesus. If you rest, then I can rest. Rest, Lord Jesus. Rest, Lord Jesus. When you rest, Lord Jesus, then I can take a rest. Rest, Lord Jesus, like the dew in the morning time. Rest, Lord Jesus, rest. Like the dew in the morning, gently rest upon my heart. Oh, Ramashana, Ramashina, oh, Ramashina,
Thank you very much for letting us have that moment for our sister. Appreciate it very much. Now, let's get down to business. What would you rascals like to discuss? Question or topic that you would like to consider? traditionally, in gatherings like this, that in Hindu mysticism has been referred to as satsang. The pursuit is one of truth. And the topics, questions that are engaged are all at some level related to and purpose to enhance the revelation of the truth. The Kemetic mystics in ancient Africa and even in pre-dynastic Kemet simply called it the teachings on reality, because the bottom line for all of us is that you're living in reality, and the failure or the refusal to govern your life on the basis of reality will simply result in suffering both here and hereafter. So I won't be answering any questions related to how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, because that's not relevant to your condition. So, with that, we will cast the first stone. Yes, beloved.
I want you to talk to me about forgiveness.
Acha, forgiveness. Thank you very much. What's your name, beloved?
Grace.
Grace. What a beautiful name. Actually, your name contains the answer. But if you like, I will say a few words more to make it, as Malcolm would say, plain. Forgiveness is a faculty that we as human beings have been endowed with for the sake of relieving our suffering. Because of our fallen condition, and by that I mean the fact that we are not conscious of our true divinity and are bound up in our ego, we are easily offended by others. We are constantly having the experience of being wronged by someone. And in those moments, we are suffering. And many of those times, beloved, in order for our suffering to come to an end in those instances, it requires the other person to apologize or make retribution or something of that nature, you see, to make you whole again, you see. But there are some rascals that you will be waiting until the end of time to get an apology from. And there are many of them who really have no intention of making you whole. Their intention was to hurt you. Why in the world would they apologize? So in those moments, there's the dilemma to remain resentful and clinging to your feelings of insult and having been wrong, or to release that. Forgiveness, then, beloved, is the divine creator way of giving us the ability to relieve our own suffering as a result of having been wronged by another. And we forgive the other. Doesn't mean that we have legitimatized what they have done. It does not mean that we have condoned what they have done. It was wrong then, it's wrong now, it'll be wrong at the end of time. But the act of forgiveness is the awareness that clinging to this resentment only harms me. You see, this other person is sleeping sound at night, and you're the one who are laying there wide awake, obsessing about what so-and-so did or said or didn't do or say to you. You forfeit your peace of mind, you see, beloved. Forgiveness is a mechanism in consciousness by which you are able to maintain your mind in a state of equanimity and serenity. When anger is in your mind, and the impulse to seek revenge is there, when your mind is full of ill will, you see, those states of mind are turmoil. They are suffering. They don't feel good. So, the act of forgiveness then is a way to relieve this kind of form of suffering in your mind. The inability to forgive usually will send you running to the refrigerator for a gallon of ice cream, or running to the corner store for some liquor, or some other thing to relieve of the agony of your resentment. As much more can be said about it. There may be a small book on the table out there, Anger Management. You might want to glance at. Much more has been said in that little pamphlet about forgiveness. And forgiveness, you see, beloved, when you become capable of that, moves you closer. It elevates you in your humanity. It moves you closer to the attainment of your spiritual potential. It moves you closer to your divinity, you see. To forgive is to participate in the divine, you see. Forgive those who trespass against you, right? And you will be forgiven. Because you too have hurt somebody, is that right, beloved? And you too stand in need of forgiveness, is that right, beloved? You see. So forgiveness is also associated with humility. And this humility is the cornerstone of spiritual development. See? It's the foundation. What the Kemetic mystic called sinepit. It's critical. And these Kemetic sages, there's many sages in every other culture and time. That's the one thing you'll find true about sages, that their teachings, although they may use different words, are always the same. So whether we're talking about the Kemetic mystics and their emphasis on Sinenme, or we're talking about the Hindu mystics and their emphasis on Dinta, you see, or the Buddha, and so forth and so on. This humility, you see, is the recognition that the behavior you condemning in others very often is behavior that you yourself have been guilty of. You see, haven't you said things to others out of a moment of upset with them that perhaps broke their heart? Who knows, the person might not have been in their right mind at the moment. You know, people drink a lot, and smoke a lot of weed, you know that. Maybe they were high, and in that moment of being out of their mind, they did or said something that even they regret later. But when there's humility in us, we're not so quick to take offense. And then you have to investigate that feeling of resentment. See? Because our anger at others don't say anything about the other. It says something about you. And if there's no humility there to protect you from your own ego, then you would come away from such incidents feeling like you are all high and mighty and above this person. You see. But with a little reflection, how often do we find that the very thing that the person has done to us, we have done ourselves to others? There's a law called the law of karma. We used to, here in our culture, we simply understand is the fact that you shall what? That's the law. It's very interesting. People will tend to treat you how you treat others. It's very interesting. The law ensures that that is the case. You see. Hence the golden rule. Do not do unto others that which you would not have others do unto you. You see. In every great spiritual tradition, you see, beloved, there's a whole set of moral and ethical principles that we are to conform our life and live into so that our behavior, our actions, does not result in the kind of karma that when it comes back to us, it's going to break our hearts. You see. It's very interesting. Much more can be said. I hope that is enough to whet your appetite. And what could be a greater act of grace than to forgive another person for having trespassed against you? Don't you think that's grace? I do too. Something else? Yes, beloved.
What is that which you find within you that discerns the difference between judgment of another and recognition of something that's undesirable, I guess you could say?
Well, in both cases of forgiveness, and certainly in the case of recognition, the faculty is intelligence. Because, again, we have all been endowed with the capacity to be intelligent. It's part and parcel of the body-mind complex, you see. And when we say we recognize something as being undesirable, it depends from whose perspective. And usually what we label as undesirable in other people's behavior is that kind of behavior that we don't like, that we can't profit from. Behavior where there's nothing in it for us. That kind of response, you see, beloved, is the sign of one's own lack of spiritual development. You see, it is ego. You see, it is the sign of the presence in mind of another one of the basic kinds of perversions that our minds are subject to. It's called vanity. Vanity. The presumption that your concepts and your beliefs are the standards by which all other human beings strive to conduct their life. It is to arrogate to yourself a status that you do not possess. Now, when you say displeasing, that's a subjective word. Because for something to be displeasing, there has to be someone to whom it is displeasing. But it's probably not God, because he keeps breathing the person. You know what I mean? He keeps circulating his blood, beating his heart. You follow me? So we can rule out God in nature. So from whose point of view is the behavior labeled not pleasure? But you see, Williams, that's our whole story, isn't it? Because this is what we're seeking. Not able to find happiness, we are seeking pleasure. People have just about abandoned the pursuit of happiness, which is what their heart really wants, and have settled upon pleasure. And are in desperate pursuit of pleasure. We seek pleasure from things that can be possessed, material things. But that don't give you enough pleasure to keep from committing suicide. Are you with me? We search for pleasure in the pursuit of information, you see, of all varieties, esoteric, scientific, historical, political, but again, it's not enough. The principal source of our search for pleasure is another human being. We depend on other human beings to be the source of pleasure for us, you see. We place that burden on them, don't you think? So your wife or your husband, their whole reason for existence is to be the source of your pleasurization, you see. And this is what the ego-bound human being does. Their whole life is simply an endless pursuit of self-pleasurization, self-aggrandizement, self-glorification. And then they die. That's it. Unfulfilled. And the more miserable you are, the more desperate is your search for pleasure. Because pleasure gives you a momentary relief from your suffering. But all pleasures are transient, they're impermanent. But the Buddha call it nika, right? But the Hindu mystics call maya, illusion. You see. They do not last. So in the end, you are returned and restored to your ordinary state of unfulfillment. Something. So, you see, William saw there's so much to be said about that. On these kind of occasions, as you all can appreciate, I'm not at liberty or have the time to really exhaust it, but we really could sit here for another week and just scratch the surface. It is that deep. Maharaji, my Guru Sahib used to always tell us, he says that in this world, moving about is like walking on a road full of thorns. And the thorns are so many that there's no way to pick them all up. You have to instead have some strong boots on, you see? so that people who don't act right don't bother you. Man, if you're in trouble, you're vulnerable to people not acting right, you see. And, or displeases you. And you will always be upset, frustrated, angry, irritated, and annoyed. This insistence that everything and everyone be the source of pleasure is rooted in a kind of childish disposition. It is living life on the basis of your likes and your dislikes, because displeasure simply means you dislike something. Is that about right? It's a synonym, right? Dislike. We live our whole life like that, like a child, expecting the world and others in it to always be and show up in the form of something that we like. We're always pursuing what we like and avoiding what we dislike. This is a child. Reality does not give a damn about what you like or dislike. Have you noticed? It don't check with you. Does it? So what you like or don't like don't mean anything. Don't mean squat in the face of reality. But when you are trapped in the disposition of a child, you're living your life with the erroneous expectation that everything that's going to rise in your lifetime and living must be or can be made to be something that you like. And you think that you can avoid something that you dislike. That's not possible either. Have you noticed that? Have y'all noticed that? It keep happening, right? You don't like it? Damn. Happens again. Happens again. You move to this neighborhood and it's the same old kind of neighbor that you just moved away from. Waited right there for you. Get rid of one wife and the next one pick up where she left off. And then about that. That's how it goes. This anxiety, this neurotic disposition in relationship with life creates great fear and anxiety because you're afraid all the time that something's going to happen that you don't want to happen. Constantly scanning your environment, both human or otherwise, to see if you can head off something or someone that you don't like. Oh, I see that bastard coming out. Always hypervigilant, scanning, always afraid. You see, the egoic condition is characterized by this constant low-grade fear. Even when you're having a good time, you're still afraid underneath it because you're afraid it's going to end too soon. Right? Remember when we were kids eating ice cream? And the lower it got and lower it got, man, you know, you start licking slower. Trying to make it last, but what could you do? It's not going to last. So the saints and the sages tell us that you must grow up and become capable of living your life beyond the limitations of your likes and your dislikes, to no longer be governed by that kind of a principle. follow me? But instead to be governed by a higher principle. You see, you must become capable of facing life. Two things people can't do. They can't face life as it is, and they can't face death as it is. In fact, Zen and Buddhism and almost every great spiritual tradition that you can identify in the history of man, one of the first lessons about reality is death. You see. And it is the key lesson in life. In fact, that lesson is what makes living a useful life possible. If you can't face death, you will not, by definition, face life, because life is just a reflection of loss, change. Everything is constantly coming into being, durating for a while, and then disappearing. It is nothing but many deaths, you follow me, occurring before the big one. So our task with him, is to transcend our childish disposition and our pursuit of or expectation that life is going to be the way you want it to be. You see, got to get real. It's not Disney World. That ain't happening here. This is not utopia. You see. And as you grow older and you reflect, in hindsight, you begin to do the arithmetic, and you find that there's been more stuff that happened to you that you did like than stuff that you really like. That's how it goes. And the principle then, beloved, that governs your response to environmental, human, and otherwise is based on intelligence. You respond as appropriate. The Zen master says when he's hungry, chop wood, carry water. When tired, sleep. You don't have to make drama out of all of it. And most of our life is just in this dramatization of our ego. Ego drama, that's all it is, just drama. Much ado about nothing. So we must find and locate that state of consciousness where the world and what goes on in it affects you like a pinprick. You still have some response because we are in this body, but it's no longer crushing blows anymore. You know what I mean? Just a pinprick. Something else to say about it? Yes, beloved.
If you were finished with that,
Yes,
please.
beloved.
If you choose to comment, I have a comment on, if you will, the strange climatic conditions that we're currently experiencing. If you, I guess, perceive them as strange.
What's your name, beloved?
Isaiah Ward.
Isaiah Ward.
Paul Ward.
Well, there's all kinds of directions we could go with that question. as you probably know by now,
Yes.
right? But you see, weather and things like that, that's a part of nature, right? And what we have to understand about our actions is that our actions do not just affect other people. It affects the entire universe, not just the ozone layers and the weather here. Throughout the whole universe it resonates, you see. And not just on an individual basis either. Our collective actions impact. The whole of nature. And so you can see where I'm going with this. If in this time that we are living, what the mystics call the dark time, the Kali Yuga, you see, when we have moved the farthest from our divine nature that is humanly possible. Kali Yuga. When love and compassion and tolerance for one another has altogether disappeared and has been replaced by cutthroat competition and anti-love, anti-compassion, and so forth and so on. The Western way of life and living, to sum it up. When all of us are now emitting that kind of energy, because we are energy beings, we throw off energy. You see, nature is energy. It's a matrix of energy. You see, we affect it, it affects us. Is that about right? It's a two-way street. And so when our behavior deteriorates as such, you see, it affects nature. You see. And the great law of karma does what that law does, you see. You hurt the water hurt your back. You hurt the land hurt your back, you see. That's how it goes. Now, there's a lot more to be said about that. Some of the most beautiful insights into our relationship with nature, of course, you find it in almost every tradition, but it is focused on, in great depth, in Kemetic mysticism. Because we talk about Nut, we talk about Ged, we talk about the earth, you know, so forth and so on. The Native American Indians and their spiritual tradition, you see, they have a lot of teachings on how to live in harmonious relationship with the land, with the trees, with the animals, and so forth and so on, you see. And that has been lost to us as a society, on a collective level. Are you with me, beloved? So that creates a kind of cosmic karma, kind of collective karma. And this is the response. It's not the first time. You see, there was Ice Age, Warm 1, Warm 2, when entire continents were covered by ice, wiping out every form of life that was on the planet. So this is not anything new, you see. You have to remember where we're at. In this world, nothing lasts forever. Nothing is permanent. Death and destruction is built into this place. That's what happens here. And so you have to have those mechanisms in place. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
All right? Gotta be some here to kill y'all. You understand?
That's it.
It ain't enough human being to kill everybody, so we need, you know, they need some volcano, they need some earthquake, so we can take care of millions, you know, the spill sloop, you know. there must be those mechanisms in place in this world, this realm, that destroys every kind of life form. And it will always be such. You see, because that's the nature of this place. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't give you the impression that if we start all holding hands and singing Kumbaya, there'll be no more earthquakes. There'll be some more earthquakes. Now you can still hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but don't be deluded. You follow me? It ain't gonna stop earthquakes. It's not gonna stop tsunamis. You see? Not gonna stop that. Because that process of destruction is built into the process, into the mechanism of this world. Have you seen anybody or anything that didn't get wiped out here? Raise your hand. You won't see it. Everyone and everything gets wiped out. That's the truth. And you can live on the basis of that recognition. You were talking about recognition, right? And intelligence is that faculty that gives us the ability, beloved, to recognize reality. Are you with me? That's the function of your intelligence, you see, of the intellect. What the Buddhists and Hindu mystics call the buddhi, not the booty, the buddhi. No more talking to you. The buddhi, the intellect. When made functional, the intellect gives one the ability to recognize reality and to respond appropriately. So you recognize that this is the ultimate destiny of everything and everyone, death. Yours and everybody you know. Recognizing that, you get prepared for death. The spiritual process and real religion, not fake religion. You see, the religion that helps you console yourself and minimize your anxiety about the reality of death, you see. Real religion prepares you for death. And you handle that business as soon as possible. In ancient Kemetic times, when you are in your adolescence, that's the business you're up to, you see? And even today, you see, beloved, in Tibetan culture, when you reach adolescence, you're sent to a monastery to study with the lamas, you see. You're going to learn about death and how to prepare yourself for it. You follow me? That's important business. In ancient Greece, you were sent to a Socrates. You know, Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, they had a lot of young students. So you're 16, 17, you sit with Socrates trying to show you how to die. That's how you do this here, you see. And then himself gave a great demonstration, drink that hemlock, no problem. Handle that business. See, when you don't know how to die, you don't know how to live. You're too afraid to live. You follow what I'm saying? What you call living is trying not to die. Please make a note. How you gonna pull that off? You know what I mean? I'm listening. You know, if you got something that you have discovered that 10,000 Buddhas have not, okay, I'm open. How you gonna do that? And ancient Kemetic mysticism is taken to a whole another level, you see. That's the lesson. When you have learned how to die, now you can face death and you can do life. No problem. You follow me? You're no longer afraid of dying because you know how to die. You follow me? I'm reminded of a story told about a Zen master who was requested by the emperor of the Qin dynasty to come to court and become his personal spiritual teacher, and so forth and so on. And this particular Zen teacher was a little eccentric, as they tend to be. And so after many requests, you see, of the emperor, he had never showed up. So the emperor, it's the emperor after all, right? Called a few of his ministers and said, listen, I want you to go get this guy. You see, I told him to come up here 4 or 5 times. You see, he's not obeying me. I'm the king, I'm the emperor. You know, you go get him. And don't take no for an answer. If you come back here without him, I'm killing you. You see my point? Dead or alive, I want him here. And so they went to this Zen master. And they explained their predicament, you see. They approached him, venerable sir. We have been instructed by the emperor to return to the palace with you. And if you refuse to go with us, you see, we will be killed. And we will have to kill you and take your dead body back. And that will be a sin for which we will never be forgiven. What to do? So the venerable master told him not to worry. And he went to his sangha. And it was a small sangha, but a very close-knit sangha. You know, there was great affection between the Zen master and his students. And the students, you see, understood the dilemma, but nevertheless, they were still saddened by the very thought that the teacher would be leaving them and would not be there to nourish their spiritual growth and development anymore. And he asked, he said, well, can't take you all. I can take maybe 3 or 4 or 5 of you. You know what I mean? And so he started asking them, said, well, you know, we got to be back there. They got a cutoff date. You know, so much time has already been wasted. So we got to move real, real fast. You know what I mean? He says, how fast can you walk? See? And the person said, well, beloved, I can walk at least 80 miles a day. That's too slow. You know what I mean? You won't be able to keep up with me. And the other, he looked around and somebody else raised their hand and said, well, sir, I can walk 100 miles a day. And the master said, that's good, but that's still too slow. You see? And then he asked another one, you know, and they were raising their hands. Some said I can walk 130, some said I can walk 150 miles a day. And he was saying, all this is too slow. You see, you got to be able to keep up with me. And then there was one student that raised their hand and said, I think I understand what you mean. And the guru looked at it and said, yeah, all right, good. So come on, let's go. And so they got their provisions, right? And as soon as they got outside of the gate with the group of ministers that had come to get them, they stopped and they looked at one another. And then the master dropped dead. And then the disciple dropped dead. You see? The point is that they knew how to die. The pharaohs, the Perahs, in ancient Kemet, every 4 years or so, will have a public demonstration of how to die. They call it the Sid Festival. You go into one of the complexes and go in there and die. Not die in the final sense of the word, but to have the experience of the afterlife and then come back from it, what is very similar to what is experienced by people who have near-death experiences or out-of-the-body experience. Well, not out-of-the-body experiences, because that's little stuff. The near-death experience. No, but when you have an out-of-the-body experience, like most people report in their near-death experiences, it's just hovering over the physical body. You know, you're over the body, you're in the operating room, you see the doctors, and you see the nurses, and you see your wife taking your credit cards out of your wallet. People selling your stuff. Right? I was reminded of the story. A guy was on a motorcycle, right? Well, he's a Hell's Angel type guy, you know, he's dressed in the black and all that, leathered up and all that. Riding his motorcycle, had an accident, right? Got messed up. He woke up in the hospital, right? And the nurse had said to him, he said, man, I got some good news for you, and I got some bad news for you. And so she said, which do you want first? He said, give me the good news. She said, okay, we got $100 for your boots. See, cut his legs off so But in any case, you see, in the typical out-of-body experiences, you're just sitting up there, you're floating, you're looking down at the body, so forth and so on. But you haven't gone to any other sector of reality in the matrix, in the structure of reality. You have not moved anywhere. You see my point? You have not moved into another world. You see, you have not gone into another sector. You see, there are sectors of reality. Reality is a structure. You follow me? And you can exist in different sectors. Like this is a sector. This is the physical sector, the Pendam region, as the Hindu mystic call it, you see. But then there's other sectors or levels or dimensions of reality. And the after-death experience is to go into those regions and then come back down. You see, you don't go all the way, because if you go all the way, you know, that's the end of this existence. You get another body. You see, if you move all the way into the astral sector, this body falls away, you got an astral body. You know, you keep on doing what you were doing here, but you're doing it in an astral body, in an astral level of reality. See, astral beings are doing the same thing y'all are. You see, they're seeking happiness. You see, it's all that's going on up into the uppermost levels of this matrix. So the out-of-body experience is interesting, but that's not it. That's not it. So these saints and sages, particularly during the Kemetic era in Africa, took it to a whole another level. Then it was lost. And it was resurrected in different places, so forth and so on. But even before there was a Kemet, there was the science. The sand people, you know the sand people, you know the sand. Come on now, ain't some of Saline listeners here? Come on now. The Twa. Low. There you go. Well, they were able to, easily do the out-of-body stuff, but someone was able to go and get a little higher stuff. And they used to have a ceremony where they would bring them in the trance. The women there was a way of clapping and singing. They would clap and sing, and the men would dance. That Sufi dance, you see, to that rhythm, the women. And they're singing, and they would go. And they would usually do this ceremony when there was illness in the community. And they'll go in, find the cure, and the men will come back down, and they will heal. So I don't want you to have the impression that it started with Pharaonic Egypt, although historically that's the earliest record we have of this kind of mystical possibility for human beings. But it's pre-Kemet, pre-Nubia, you see? Twa set that wheel down in motion. They turned that wheel. Buddha turned it later, but Twa turned it first. You see? I don't want to scare y'all, but I have to talk about death in the funeral home. They'll invoke my permit to use the facility. I'm up some business for, A lot more can be said about it, you see. And you see, in every culture they had those mystics who had made the journey, who would serve the community. And provide the family of the lost ones with some understanding that would ease their grief, you see. Throughout the video, you're a funeral director, so you see this on a daily basis. A lot of time when people lose someone they love, they just bewildered. They don't understand where mom, what happened? Where's daddy? Where my daughter? Where my son? Where my best friend? I was just talking to them. Just like that, they call them. Just traumatize people because they thought that death was going to send them a telegram or email you. Death ain't going to email you, man. And they ain't going to leave no voice message on your cell phone either. Not how it happened. Not how it happened. And when it happens, very often those of us who are still left behind, who was in relationship with that person, that's a shock. It's grief. That's trauma. And sometimes people never get over that. I've seen people just grieve themselves to death. Just grieve to death, mourn to death. They had no preparation. Not only did they not have preparation for their death, they had no preparation for other people's death. Gotta have that too. Gotta have that too. And so these sages would sometimes provide some esoteric relief for the family who were experiencing the losses and wanted to know what happened. Is this boring you all?
No, sir.
Damn. So there were, at first, an oral tradition that later became reduced to writing. And the two most profound ones was certainly the one in ancient Kemet, you see, with the knowledge and insights embedded in the Perdam heaven, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is really the Egyptian book of coming forth after life. It's like you coming forth into the light. Because this matrix of reality is energy. And energy is what, William Saab, you a physicist? Energy is fundamentally what?
It's just the vibration of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Which is called light for the rest of us. It's light. Light. And so, reality and all of its different levels and sectors are nothing but light. You see, at different rates of vibration. And this light, when it hits the mind, is split into a spectrum of colors. The mind is like a prism. You know when white light hit a prism, it creates the spectrum, right? And each color in that spectrum represents a sector of reality. Are you with me? And depending upon where your attention is trapped by your mind, that determines the experience you will have. That will become your environment, in which you will do life. That spectrum of life, what is called the mandala. Are you familiar with the mandala? Okay. The mandala, the energy light matrix that phenomena is occurring within. Those colors are hierarchical, beginning with the lowest level, an environment where you can do life, the red, right? Y'all remember that song, red, yellow, silvery white, and indigo, right? Bright blue, and white. And they can be mixed, because in every spectrum, all the other ones are in fold. You will appreciate that, William Saab, David Baum, Wholeness and Empty Order, where the whole universe unfolds, right? Okay, that's enough when you go to sleep. Very folks, they didn't have no books in the school we went to. It's holographic, you see. Anyway, the point I'm making is that when a person dies, you can tell what realm he went to. It's just interesting. And so what the death masters, you see, in ancient Kemet, they call them the Sim. The Sim. The Sim head, the Sim teacher, the death master. In Chinese and Buddhist tradition, they're called the Bhagwan masters. You see, the other book that has some of the same esoteric revelations is the Bhagwan, the Egyptian, not the Egyptian, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's really the Tibetan book about what happens between the gaps. Bhagwan means gaps, gaps. You see, the gap between this life and the next life, there's going to be a gap there, and the Bhagwan describes those gaps. You see, like this is a gap. This is a Bhagwan, because before you was here, you were not born. Where were you? You see, the Kemetic mystic called that whole place, other than this, Dwat, the Dwat. You see, I'm getting to something here. So when a person would die, they would be, the family would be instructed, first of all, on how to handle the death of a loved one. And different cultures have different practices. I like the Chinese one. Not that it's any better, but it's more practical. You don't move the body for 8 hours. Some tradition you don't move them for 3 days, etc., etc. For 8 hours. It's pretty much found out if you did or not. What do you think, man? and it made sense because after, you want to make sure that it's not just clinical death. You feel like, but complete death has occurred. You know what I mean? And sometimes, even when the body has stopped breathing, the nervous system is still operating and so forth and so on. You all know all that stuff. Okay. So, Satraj's dead, right? Children, you don't know where the hell he went, right? You rule out heaven, right? And you just want to satisfy yourself that he went straight to hell. That's like you said, you going straight to hell. So you want to be able to verify that, right? Okay. So you can tell where the soul leaves the body at. By seeing which part of the body is the warmest after the person has been dead for 8 hours. If the head is still the warmest part of the body, then this person, they say, I don't know, I'm just telling you what they say. This person exited through the Sahasrara chakra and has gone on to an enlightened place. If the eyes are the warmest on the body, you see, then they have gone to a high heavenly region in that spectrum, you see. If the heart is still the warmest point in the body, then they made it through the those after death, and they're going to be born a human being again. If the stomach is the warmest part of the body of the deceased, then the deceased has been reborn into what the Buddhists call the realm of the hungry ghost, purgatory, right? I mean, you stuck. You follow me? Hungry ghost means you got, your mind is still there, you got all these desires in your mind, but you have nobody upon which to fulfill them. You want some ice cream, but you ain't got no hand and no body. You see, all of your desires that you have is still intact. Nobody to act on any of them. Hungry ghost. You see. The knees. That's the warmest part of the body. Going into the animal realm. That's where he's at. And if the feet are the warmest part of the corpse after the 8 hours, they're going to hell. So take your socks off. Listen to me. Make sure you get them socks off his feet. I don't want no cheat. He'll cheat. He'll tell you, bury me with my socks on. Whether any of it is true or not, I can't say. But you'll find it. Everybody finds out the truth. Everybody. You're going to find out the truth. You see, don't worry if you don't learn it from me or somebody else that proposes to teach to. Don't even worry about that. You see, you're going to find out the truth because you're going to die. And in that moment of death, in that bardo, you're going to find out the truth. You see. You will even by grace, stand up grace so everybody can see you. You will by grace actually get a chance to be restored in your original condition. You will be given an opportunity to go and then dwell in the domain of the absolute being, what we will call God, for lack of a better word, you see. The transcendent realm, which is represented by the white light. You see. So you have some people who have near-death experiences and they go beyond hovering over the table. You know, some of them report, I was floating, seeing my body, but then, you know, I was pulled into a dark tunnel. You see, they went out of that yellow, silvery, white moonlight. You see the sun, the moon. Y'all, if you study the literature, mystic talk about when you go in, first you see the sun, then you see the moon, you crossing those regions. Those are the colors of those sectors of energy / white, you see. And when they come to the indigo realm, right? Because there's the indigo, then there's the blue, then there's the white. When they get to the indigo, it's like it's like they're going through a dark tunnel. That's what they report. They're going through a dark tunnel, at the end of which there's some light, right? They'll get to the light, but the problem is they can't stay there. And you want to know why? Why is that? Well, next week. The reason that they are not able to stay in that light, they'll see it. Because everybody almost reports seeing the white light. True. And they tell you that the white light is beautiful and it feels good and blah, blah. And they describe very positive and beneficent experiences coming into the light. But they can't stay. And the reason they can't stay because they can't pay attention. Now, isn't that interesting? The fundamental function of spiritual practice in sadhana is to train your attention. Every experience that you can have in any of the realms of light sectors of reality is based on your attention. Are you with me? And when you have no control over your attention, in its movement or its location. You see, when you are still suffering from the tendencies of mind and attention, the habits of your mind and attention. And remember, while you are living, you are making your habits and tendencies of what you do with your attention now. And when you did, those habits and those tendencies of attention will determine where you can stay. Are you following?
Yes,
So you can have the glimpse of the Dhammakaya, as the Buddhists call it. You see, the body of the Buddha, the body of light. But your attention comes right off of it. Now, those of you who meditate, you understand this, don't you? Right? You shaking your head awful hard. Anybody that practices any kind of meditation will notice that the first thing you run into is the problem with your attention. You can't keep your attention if it's on a mantra. You can't your attention keep running off of a mantra. Right? If it's on your breath, like in some of the Buddhist tradition, your attention keep coming off of your breath. You just can't hold your attention. You are not yet responsible for its movement. You have not assumed such responsibility. You have not trained for it, you see. So it goes, right? A bird chirps outside the window, your attention is gone. Now when you're moving through this matrix of light at the time of your death, you follow what I'm saying? And as you passing through these sectors, you see, you're passing through one sector, and if there's something going on in there that attracts your attention, some vision, some person, you're gone. And then once you enter in that sector, you become bound. You see, those sectors are binding. They bind. Once attention gets in there, it's hell. Can't get out. Normal. You see. And you're not able to even presume or even feel that that sector of reality is not the absolute reality. See, now this is where it gets subtle. You see, what I'm telling you is that whatever sector of reality the tension is withdrawn, is put in, that sector becomes for them all that there is of reality. Like you all are in this sector, and for those of us in this sector, this is all the reality that you conceive of. This is it, as far as you're concerned. And it's in this sector that you do your life, you do your living, you pursue your happiness. But I want you to notice that when you go to sleep tonight and you have a dream, have you noticed that in your dream, no matter how weird that stuff is, it seems real? You simply have no capacity to doubt the reality of what's going on in your dream. You see? Now here's a monster come with 3 ears and a horn, but you know, you run and scream, but it never dawned on you that this ain't real. You take it as being real. That's the binding force of a dream. When you enter into the dream sector of reality binds attention. And you have no pre-force during that time that you are in the dream sector of reality to consider it as anything other than the absolute, utter reality, that it is, i.e., real. Don't you know? When you dream, you feel that what you're dreaming about is real. And who you're dreaming about is real. And what you're doing in the dream is real. With no capacity to question it.
Just like here?
Just like here. This too is made out of the same stuff that dreams is made out of.
So is the dream real?
It's real while you're in it. Because it is a sector, you see. And each of these sectors, beloved, of vibrating light energy color has the phenomena in those realms are longer and longer and longer. For instance, the cycle of arising, durating, and disappearing in this realm is quick. In a dream, it's even quicker, right? This one is a little longer, it slows down, right? Because it's a different vibration. At the next one, it's even slower. It's like an algorithm. It slows down. And so if you are, for instance, doing your life in the astral sector of reality, you can be there for 1,000 years. It's a long life. You know what I mean? But it's impermanent. It too will come to an end. And so in the astral region, there are those who have awakened to the unreality of the astral region and are doing sadhana. Yeah. Sadhana is very popular. And in the same way, when you go to beyond the astral, to the causal level, it seems like you almost have arrived in some place that is immoral. You see? But it is not. It too eventually ends. The only place is that is not subject to time and dissolution is beyond the matrix. And what the Kemetic mystic called the moon, the place from which the whole matrix arose. You see? Amindra. You see? Nirvana. You see? Sadish. Now you see in Islam, for instance, this white light, when you're going through those matrix of light, as you see it, it oftentimes appears a 5-pointed star. You see that represented. Remember when we went to Kemet? You all remember when we went to Kemet and you went into the pyramid of Arunas, right, and on the walls where they had the Persian letter written out and displayed, and you saw that person where they were a star, 5-pointed star, right? That was representative of someone who had pierced through. You see? Profound. If you remember walking through some of the grounds in Karnak or Efu, and remember the ceiling, you looked up and you saw them bright colors, the yellow gold, you saw the bright blue, and you saw what? The stars. These people had knowledge. In Islam, you'll see the star, crescent moon. Because that's what it looked like. Because the silvery white light is real thin. And you're looking through and you can see the star back there, so it looks like a crescent moon and a star. Till you go further. You see? It's fascinating. It's very fascinating. The point I'm making is that I'm trying to impress upon you the absolute necessity and importance of training your attention now. You follow me? Because if you die with an untrained attention, you are in trouble. You will be easily distracted, as you are easily distracted here, right? And you will not be able to pay attention. Thus, you will not be able to have the experience because you cannot experience that which you don't pay attention to. Attention is the mechanism and the foundation of all experiences. You see, it's not just your physical senses, the senses of seeing, touching, tasting, and smelling. If you're not paying attention, you won't smell nothing. Yes, William, sir.
Did we make it that way such that it would match the level that we were at?
Expand.
So it's a hierarchical structure. So if you are not capable of putting your attention to the infinite, you cannot become the infinite.
Right.
And vice versa on down.
Well, now coming down is a different story. Well, in some sense, it's two stories in the descent, right? There's a descent where you lose that, obviously, because we have descended down and have no conscious experience of your divinity. You have it, none of it whatsoever. You say you got a soul, you have no experience of your soul at all. What you are experiencing is your body and the sensations in that body. You're experiencing your emotions, and you're experiencing your mind and the thoughts running through it. And that's it. Because you are in the lower levels of the yellow gold spectrum of energy light reality. You see? And that's all that's happening in that. Now, in the ascent of attention, because the spiritual process in most traditions is a process of ascent, ascending, you see, or withdrawing your attention out of the lower, you see my point, for the sake of having the higher experience. And so this descent, in some sense, this involution, right, unfolds. But that's misleading, beloved. This is the paradox. Because once you have gone beyond the matrix and found out what's happening, you can re-enter the matrix. But you re-enter the matrix, you know what's happening now. You recognize the matrix. You understand that this red and yellow and moonlight and blue and all of that, that's all white light just passing through prism. You recognize phenomena for what it is. You follow me? It's a very different experience. But you have to go beyond. You see, some people think, well, if I can move up to blue realm, I'm enlightened. That is not enlightenment. That's just another level of experiences. If I get into the astral region, I become enlightened. No, that's just similar experience. You're not enlightened. You see my point? You just have an astral experience. No big deal. I used to always discourage. I said, don't even get caught up in that stuff. Stay in the center. You see. When you learn how to meditate, the first instruction is you focus your attention in the center. You stay in the center, and you move through the center. You don't go right, you don't go left. You stay focused in the center. This is the question that Bhagwan was asked on our last occasion, you see. I thought I would address it for her sake. You stay in that center. You stay focused there, you see. But if your attention gets distracted, because you went through one of the master readings, you seen a fine man and a fine woman, and Roger Bitter go. Roger Bitter, you ain't gonna go very far. You better really overcome your weakness, man. Because you sisters in master reading, man. You see, you smell something good cooking in natural reason. You out. You trapped down there. You see. Attention then, as the mechanism of mind that you must become fully responsible for. You must learn how to control it. You must learn how to locate your attention at will. It must come under your own conscious control. As long as your attention is still subject to the tendencies and habits of attentions and patterns of attention that you are making now, you see, you will be in trouble. You see, you're making your mind and your attention patterns now. When you drop this body, your mind and those tendencies are going to make your experience. While alive, you make the mind. When you dead, the mind makes your experiences. Got it? Spiritual practice, real spiritual practice is required. You mustn't presume that just a little egoic improvement and a little moral behavior will be sufficient for you to die and go to heaven. That's not going to happen. Cannot happen. You follow? In fact, such a presumption, such a belief is simply the avoidance of spiritual practice. You just try to avoid spiritual practice by believing in all that bullshit. That's all I'm saying. That's all that's about. There must be this training of attention while living. The mystics call it dying while living. It is a part of the spiritual teaching in every great culture, every great tradition. Transcending the ego. Dying while living. Go find out about it now. You follow what I'm saying? The sooner the better. The sooner you find out about it, the sooner you are relieved of your near pathological, neurotic preoccupation with death. Fear. Just scared, trembling. You follow me? Can't even live. Scared of everything. Omniphobic. You scared of everything. Not just mice and mosquitoes. You scared somebody taking advantage of you. You scared of your wife or your husband leaving you. You scared that your children are gonna die. You scared you're gonna lose your job. You scared nobody gonna like me. Nobody's gonna praise me. You scared somebody's gonna criticize you. You scared you will not be famous. You scared you won't be rich, or you scared you will be rich. It cuts both ways, you see. Just fear. Scared you're gonna get sick. I'm scared I'm gonna get sick. Yeah, you're gonna get sick. What you thought? You weren't gonna get sick? You never prepared yourself to get sick. That's why you sick and suffering. Sickness is inevitable. Suffering is optional. You don't need to be suffering because you're sick. Doing all this whining. I'm sick. My throat swole up, my tongue. That's unnecessary. You follow me? Sickness happens, old age happens, and you're going to die. And you're going to lose everything and everyone. And they're going to lose you.
Yes, sir.
And either you can get with that or not get with that. This is the reality teaching. And when I say preparation, I don't mean wearing a rabbit foot. or magic amulets, a stack of tarot cards, or pictures of deceased gurus and masters on the wall. Training of attention. Solid. That's what is required. That's what's sufficient. And that's that. Who would have the last word?
Bhagwan.
Yes, beloved.
So what was the reason for you to re-enter into the Matrix? To come get us?
I can only tell you what the one who re-entered the Matrix and served me said. And maybe what he said is representative, right? Because it's been said so many times. It said that I have come to give you life and to give you life more abundant. That's all. So that is what happened to me. Someone, by grace, had mercy, came and gave me something to hold on to. You know, you can get pretty messed up out here in this sector. and you're beat up pretty bad out here. And it's easy to get depressed, despondent, and discouraged, bitter, cynical, hopeless, you see. And when you have hit rock bottom in your efforts to make this place provide the kind of happiness you're seeking, you see, you become kind of desperate. You start trying to look for something that you can hold on to keep from blowing your brains out, you see. You look for something that makes your life more abundant, make it meaningful, give it purpose. You follow me? Because this paying bills and eating food, that ain't life, you see. That ain't enough, you see. It ain't enough to hold on to. You follow me? And so when these great beings come into our territory, you follow what I'm saying? They're only looking for those who are looking for something to hold on to, you see, and be pulled up out of here, you know. Somebody did a whale and they were looking for somebody to drop that rope down so they can hold on to and get pulled up, you see. They ain't playing. You see, most of us spend our entire lifetime playing, you see, like you're ready to suffer, pretending that you are happy, when you know you ain't happy. You ain't even close to being happy. You follow what I'm saying? But you're too puffed up with vanity, you see, to admit it to yourself. But there is a point in such suffering, you see, where you've had enough. You ready to go to a whole nother place, you see. And then the visitor from outer space comes and give you that knowledge by holding on to. You can fight a circle song. That knowledge, by holding on to, you can watch parents die and make it through that. You can lose job and go through bankruptcy and make it through that. You can hold on. You got Dhamma. You got teachings. You got truth. What Maharaji called a panacea, something that makes everything all right and talk bearable. Even my own death becomes bearable. My own sickness is bearable. You see, that's knowledge that transforms suffering, you see, into no more suffering. You want to hold on to it? Mugananda, in his biographies, speaks of the fact that when he met his Guru Sahib, Nityananda, he said that was the day he became alive. That was his alive day. Remember you in the Army, so I didn't tell you about alive dates? Yeah, you see in the Army there's a saying, you know, that day that you got hidden, for all practical purposes, you're supposed to be dead, but you didn't get killed. On that day that you escaped death, that becomes your alive day. So Mugananda Ji says that when he encountered the incarnation of grace in the form of Nityananda, that on that day he became alive. Found out what life was about, you see. he says, when he met Sean Tabrice, you see, something stood up in him, made him straight. Same thing that makes the willow straight. You see. And you hear these stories, you know, they meet the guru and all that ruckus and lawless living drops. You see, it's the same transform. Sinners transform into saints. And that thing happened, you see. Mary Magdalene, a hope, becomes the beloved. Is the Son of God. You understand what I'm saying? Straightens you up. You see, blossoms you, does something to you that happens to a rose that makes it bloom. Oh, don't get me started. You messing with me. That's what it is. So we'll have a little prasad. And for our guests who may not be familiar, prasad is just a little package of sweets that I offer you. Just in case nothing I said here today was beneficial or sweeten your life. At least this is my effort to make sure that you don't leave here without something sweet. My grandmama always told us that you keep some candy for the children. When the Bible says you must have some food for those coming to the church. And so I realized that I am without the skills of these great sages that I speak about. And so I'm not so naive as to presume that my words can feed you to any degree like their words could feed you. So I just offered this little package of something sweet. Hope that it will help you hold on to something that was said here.
see me today, right?
Come on, Robert.
think I would leave you on, can you have them hold the music for a minute? Leave you with a little room. Because I just happen to carry Romy around. But it seems appropriate that he has the final word on the response to Bhagwan's question about what occurs when the teacher meets student and guru meets disciple. Because that too is a great mystery. And like all things mysterious, it's left to poets. You know, in that meeting, the two become gifts to one another. A kind of chemistry happens. A kind of profound relationship is made in that moment. That becomes almost impossible to describe with it. They have something. Jesus and Mary Magdalene, they had something. Buddha and Sariputta, they had something. Krishna and Arjuna, Asar and Isis, Shakti and Shiva. They had something. Rumi simply calls it this, whatever it is that makes your life more abundant. This we have now. It's not our imagination. This is not grief nor joy. It's not a judging state. It's not an elation. It's not any emotion. Those come and go. This is the presence that does it. It is Don Husam here in the splendor of coral, and with the friend, the simple truth of what Halai said becomes clear. What else could a human being want? When grapes turns to wine, they're wanting some of this. When the stars of the night sky pours by, they're really just a crowd of beggars. And what they all want is some of this. this that we have now created the body, cell by cell, like bees building a honeycomb. The human body and the universe grew from this, not this, from the universe and the human body. This that we have now, this is not imagination. This is the presence that does not void. What else could a human being want? I should
Makes me wanna run on Jesus' name.
that name.
I said it makes me love all my enemies. It makes me love my friends.
Want some of this? Yes, This is dangerous.
Tell the world I'm gonna get
Makes me do right when I would do wrong. When I'm down low, he gives me strong. Whatever it is, whatever it is, whatever
I